holidays, are supposed to be a time for joy and togetherness.
Yeah.
But this Christmas, it was just overshadowed by this terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
A passenger plane crashed. In Kazakhstan, it's December 25th.
Right.
And, well, the early reports are just grim.
Yeah.
Dozens feared dead. And, as with any breaking news, you know how it is. The initial information, it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
Chaotic, confusing.
Absolutely.
But don't worry, that's what we're here for, right? We're going to take a deep dive into this developing story, try to make some sense of it.
We are. And I think it's important, to acknowledge the human cost right off the bat.
Right.
This is, we're talking about people from all walks of life, different nationalities, families anxiously waiting for news.
Right.
And to make things even more complex, the plane involved was an Embraer 190.
Embraer 190.
It's not a household name, not like a Boeing or Airbus.
Not like a Boeing or an Airbus, no.
That adds another layer.
It really does. It kind of piques your interest, like, what is this?
Exactly.
So to unpack all of this, we are diving into a pretty detailed article from BBC News.
Great source.
Yeah, offers a comprehensive look, I think, at what we know so far. So you ready to do this?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. Let's start with the basics.
Okay.
The flight was Azerbaijan Airlines flight J28243. Originated in Baku, Azerbaijan, and it was en route to Grozny, Russia.
Okay.
And the crash happened early morning around 6:28 a.m. local time.
And this is where the geography gets a little interesting.
Okay.
They had to divert to Aktau, Kazakhstan because of fog in Grozny. But if you look at a map, it's not like the most logical route.
Huh.
So that makes you think, were there other factors beyond the weather at play here?
Yeah, that's a good point. The article, it really paints this harrowing picture of the actual crash. Witnesses, they described seeing the plane descending at a really high speed.
Right.
The landing gear was down and then just bursting into flames on impact.
Tragic. Really difficult to imagine. And I think what adds to the confusion in these early reports are the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Regarding the passengers and survivors. They're all over the place.
Yeah, one source said 62 passengers and 5 crew members, and then others were reporting 72 total people on board. And then even the survivor count, it's anywhere from 28 to 32. It's just hard to get a clear picture.
Well, you have to understand that discrepancy is understandable at this stage. It's breaking news. You've got rescue efforts just starting. It's hard to confirm information. Things are changing constantly. So it really underscores that we need to rely on credible sources and just be patient. Let them verify information before we jump to conclusions.
Yeah, for sure. The article did mention that most of the passengers and crew were Azerbaijani nationals. But there were also individuals from Russia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. So this is definitely international in scope.
Yeah.
One piece of information that's been kind of circulating is this possibility of a bird strike. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have. There have been these reports from Russian media, but they're unconfirmed, suggesting that the plane might have hit a flock of birds.
Right.
But again, this is unverified.
Right. We have to treat this as just one possible factor.
Right. Absolutely. Just one piece of the puzzle.
We don't want to jump to conclusions, but, it does bring up this larger issue of bird strikes in aviation.
Right.
They happen.
They do. And they're a serious concern. We've seen numerous incidents where they've caused, significant damage.
Yeah.
Or even contributed to crashes. So investigators are going to look at that very carefully in this case, too.
Yeah. And the investigation, it's already underway. Both Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan have launched their own investigations. And Embraer, the manufacturer of the plane, has pledged to assist.
That's pretty standard. It's good to see that cooperation.
Yeah.
Since we mentioned Embraer earlier, maybe just a quick point about them. For those who aren't familiar, they're a Brazilian aircraft manufacturer.
Okay.
They specialize in smaller regional jets, like this Embraer 190.
So they're kind of the niche experts for that.
Exactly. And they actually have a good overall safety record. But obviously this incident is going to bring a lot of scrutiny their way.
Rightfully so. Turning to the immediate aftermath, the article mentioned survivors crawling out of the wreckage. Some with injuries. That must have been terrifying.
It is. It's a truly harrowing image. Rescue efforts are ongoing. Families are desperately waiting for news. And it's a powerful reminder of that human toll.
Oh, absolutely.
These events take.
Yeah. This crash, it raises a lot of questions. But aviation safety in general, the long-term impact on the airline, potential changes in procedures moving forward.
It does. Every accident like this is a chance to learn and improve.
Yeah.
Too early to say what those lasting effects will be, but it's a conversation we need to have.
It is, and we will. We'll be sure to keep our listeners updated as more information comes to light. This is a very fluid situation. Things can change quickly.
Absolutely. And it brings us to a question for you, the listener.
Okay.
How do you think this crash and the investigations might shape the future of air travel? What lessons could be learned? What changes might we see as a result? Something to think about as this story unfolds.
Yeah, it's a good point. It reminds us that this isn't just some isolated incident.
Right.
This is part of a larger narrative
Absolutely.
about safety and responsibility within the aviation industry.
It is. And as we learn more, we'll continue to explore those vital issues.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like people are so quick to point fingers, after accidents like this.
I think it's just human nature, right?
Yeah.
You want to understand why these things happen.
We want answers.
And that search for understanding, sometimes it feels like you're looking for someone to blame.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that assigning blame and understanding the cause, they're not always the same thing.
Right.
These investigations, they're incredibly complex.
Yeah.
You have to analyze the black box recordings, you examine the wreckage, you interview witnesses, you look at the weather.
Right.
I mean, there are so many factors.
It's like a giant puzzle, right?
It is.
With lives hanging in the balance.
Exactly. And these investigations take time.
Yeah.
We might not know for sure what happened for weeks, months, even longer.
And in the meantime, everybody's speculating.
Of course. Especially online.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the nature of social media. So it's more important than ever to be careful about what you read.
Right.
Stick to reputable news sources. Look for evidence-based reporting and be wary of anything that feels sensationalized.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in the emotion of it, especially when you see those images of the wreckage.
Absolutely.
And you hear the stories from the survivors.
And that's why it's so important to remember the human side of all of this.
Okay.
The families who've lost loved ones, the survivors dealing with injuries and the trauma,
Yeah.
the witnesses who saw it happen. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all going through something unimaginable.
They are. And what about the first responders?
Yes,
The medical personnel
absolutely.
rushing to the scene, putting their own safety aside to help others.
The unsung heroes.
They are. Their courage and dedication are just inspiring.
They are. And this crash, it also highlights how connected our world is.
Yeah, you're talking about the different nationalities of the passengers and crew.
Exactly. This tragedy has affected people from so many countries.
Mhm.
It's a reminder that the impact of events like this, it goes way beyond just the immediate location.
It really does. And it also underscores the importance of international cooperation when it comes to investigating these accidents.
Absolutely. Sharing information, expertise, resources, that's all crucial to figure out what happened and hopefully prevent it from happening again.
Yeah. It makes you think about all the work that goes on behind the scenes
Right.
that most people never see. The investigators, the diplomats, the aviation experts all working together.
Just solve this puzzle, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to the fact that even in the face of tragedy, there's a lot of good work being done
Right.
to try to find answers and make things safer for everyone.
Right. Hopefully, those efforts will bring some comfort to the people affected by this.
It's a long road to healing, but knowing that people are doing everything they can to understand what happened,
Yeah.
that can help.
Right. Yeah. As we learn more, we'll keep you updated
We will.
with the latest information and analysis.
Mm.
But speaking of understanding, I was thinking about the psychological impact
Oh, yeah.
of an event like this. I mean,
It's huge.
it is.
Events like this, they can trigger so much anxiety and fear, especially for people who travel a lot.
Yeah. Even if you weren't personally involved, it's natural to feel a little uneasy
Of course.
when you hear about a plane crash.
Those feelings are totally normal. The important thing is to acknowledge them.
Right.
And if you need to, get support. Talk to friends, family, a therapist. That can really help process these things.
It's a good point. And, it's also important to remember statistically, flying is still a very safe way to travel.
It is. As tragic as these accidents are, they are incredibly rare. The aviation industry has made huge strides in safety over the years. We can't let one event erase all that progress.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Yeah,
Acknowledging the risks, but not letting fear control your life.
exactly. We can be informed, we can be cautious, but we don't have to let fear dictate our choices.
Right.
And we can learn from these tragedies to make flying even safer in the future.
Yeah. Every incident offers a chance to improve.
Right. Procedures, technology, training.
Right.
So even amidst all the sadness and loss, there is hope for a safer tomorrow.
There is. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how this crash might impact Azerbaijan Airlines.
The airline involved.
Yeah, the airline
It's
involved.
a good question. Anytime an airline has a major accident, there's going to be fallout.
In terms of reputation.
Yeah, public perception. People might hesitate to fly with them, at least for a while.
And that could hurt them financially.
Oh, absolutely. Airlines are businesses. Accidents like this can affect their bottom line, but it's not just about money, is it? There's a human cost to consider, too. The employees, the pilots, the cabin crew, the ground staff, they're all part of a community.
Right.
And this tragedy will have a huge impact on them as well.
It will. It's easy to forget that there are real people behind those corporate logos.
It is.
And those people are dealing with a lot right now.
They are.
They've lost colleagues.
Yeah.
They're facing scrutiny.
Right.
They're trying to understand what happened.
They're grieving, too.
They are. They deserve our compassion and support
They do.
as they navigate this incredibly difficult time. What kind of assistance is available to the families of the victims?
That's a good question. Typically, airlines will offer support services,
Okay.
grief counseling,
Yeah.
financial assistance. They'll help with logistical things like travel arrangements.
Okay. And what about the governments of the countries involved?
They play a role, too. They'll often provide consular services,
Okay.
help with repatriating remains, offer financial aid to the families. It's a whole network of support available in times of crisis.
It is. It's crucial for families to know that they're not alone,
Right.
that there are people and organizations out there
You're right.
to help them through this.
Absolutely.
As we're talking about the response to the crash, I'm struck by how much we rely on technology in these situations.
Yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it?
It is.
From the investigation itself to communication and support efforts.
Yeah, the article mentioned the plane's black box recordings.
Right. Essential for understanding what happened.
I mean, those are key to understanding those moments leading up to the crash.
Absolutely. They record flight data, cockpit conversations, so many critical pieces of information.
And then there's all the technology used in search and rescue,
Yeah,
providing medical care,
right.
communicating with families. I mean, it's all interconnected.
It is. It really shows how far we've come in terms of our ability to respond to these kinds of events effectively.
We have. But even with all these advancements, technology has its limits.
Of course.
I mean, it can provide information and tools,
Right.
but it can't replace human compassion
Exactly.
and empathy.
It's a good reminder that even in our tech-driven world, that human connection, it's still so important.
It is, especially when we're dealing with tragedy.
Absolutely. Something we should never forget.
We shouldn't. As we're reflecting on the human side of all of this,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about the survivors.
Yeah.
What challenges do they face? I mean,
It's a big question. I mean, surviving a plane crash, that's deeply traumatic. And the psychological and emotional scars, those can be long-lasting.
yeah. The article talked about people crawling out of the wreckage. Some of them had visible injuries. It's hard to imagine the pain they must be in.
It is, physical and emotional. And many survivors experience PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder,
Right.
which can manifest in a lot of ways. Flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, difficulty concentrating. It's tough.
It is. And then there's the physical toll, right?
Right.
Some people might have serious injuries
Yeah.
that require a lot of medical care. Rehab.
Absolutely. And even beyond that, just the challenge of going back to everyday life.
Right.
After something so terrifying, I mean, getting back to normal, that can feel impossible.
Yeah. Like your whole perspective on life has changed.
Exactly. It takes time, support, and understanding to heal from that kind of trauma.
It does. What resources are available to help survivors? I mean,
Well, thankfully, there are a number of organizations that specialize in trauma recovery. They
okay.
offer support groups, counseling services, specialized medical care. It's all about helping survivors process what happened and heal.
Yeah. And what about family and friends?
Oh, so important.
How can they best support survivors?
Just be there. The love and support of loved ones can make a huge difference.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection can be such a source of strength.
It really can. It's something we should all try to offer those who are struggling.
We should. Speaking of resilience, I'm curious about the aviation industry as a whole.
Yeah.
How does an industry bounce back from something like this?
Well, the aviation industry has an incredible history of learning from accidents and constantly working to improve safety.
But it's not just about making technical improvements.
No, it's about creating a culture of safety.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, an environment where Everyone, from pilots and mechanics to air traffic controllers and executives, they all feel like they can speak up
Right.
if they have any safety concerns.
So it's about accountability.
Yeah,
Everyone is responsible for safety.
exactly. And it's about always trying to learn from past mistakes
Right.
to make flying safer for everyone.
Yeah. Hopefully this crash will lead to some even bigger advancements in aviation safety.
I think it will. It's a terrible loss, but if we can learn from it and prevent similar accidents from happening, then at least some good can come from it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, there's always hope for progress.
there is. And that's something worth remembering.
As we kind of dig deeper into this whole thing, one thing that keeps coming up for me is this tension between speed and safety.
Yeah.
It's always there.
In aviation, I mean,
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
it is.
Airlines, they're under so much pressure to be efficient,
Mhm.
Keep flights on time, get people where they need to go as fast as possible.
Right.
So sometimes that means pushing the limits a bit.
Right. And those limits are defined by things like weather,
Right.
air traffic control,
Yep.
limitations of the aircraft. I mean, it's a lot to juggle.
It is. It's a complex system.
Yeah.
And sometimes, unfortunately, those margins get too narrow.
Yeah.
Whether it's human error, mechanical problems, or something unexpected happens.
And that's when accidents happen.
Right.
And it's just a reminder of the risks.
It is. And, in this particular crash, with the diversion because of fog, it makes you wonder if that pressure to stay on schedule, if that played a role.
Yeah.
Something investigators will definitely be looking into.
It's tough, isn't it? As passengers, we want speed, we want efficiency, but not if it means compromising safety.
Exactly. And that's the responsibility of everyone involved. Right.
The airlines, the regulators, the manufacturers, they have to make sure that safety comes first. Always.
Yeah. And that means making tough calls sometimes. Even if it means delaying or canceling flights,
It does.
which could be inconvenient, expensive.
Absolutely. But passenger inconvenience and, potential profit loss, those have to come second to safety every time.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Let's hope that this tragedy is a reminder of that.
It would be.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about pilots.
Okay.
I mean, they're the ones up there making split-second decisions
They are.
that can have huge consequences.
Life or death.
Yeah.
Pilots are critical to aviation safety.
Right.
They go through intense training. They have an incredible responsibility for the lives of everyone on board.
The pressure they must feel, especially during emergencies, it must be immense.
It's hard to even imagine. You have to think clearly, react quickly, often with limited time and information.
That's where the training comes in.
It does. That's why the industry puts so much into those training programs, simulations, ongoing evaluations. They have to be prepared for anything.
So they're basically training for the worst possible scenarios.
Yeah, giving them the skills to make the best possible decisions under pressure.
Yeah. And hopefully the things we learn from this crash, they'll lead to even better pilot training.
I think they will. Every accident, no matter how tragic, is a chance to learn and improve those safety protocols.
Absolutely. Speaking of advancements, I'm kind of curious about technology.
Yeah.
And its role in aviation safety. Where is technology really making a difference?
Oh, technology is changing everything. We've talked about the black boxes,
Ah.
but there are so many other things happening.
Like what? What are you most excited about?
Well, there's some really cool research and development going on in areas like collision avoidance systems, better weather prediction models, even improvements to how aircraft are designed.
So it's like every aspect of flying is being looked at and improved to reduce human error, make things safer.
That's the goal. Technology can't eliminate all risk, but it can really help reduce the chances of accidents happening.
Absolutely. And we can only hope that those advancements will help prevent tragedies like this one in the future.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our deep dive into this event, it feels like this idea of safer skies, it's the message to focus on.
I agree. Even with all the sadness around this crash, there's still that hope for positive change, that things can get better.
Yeah. It's a reminder that safer air travel, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
We can't let up.
Right. And it takes everyone working together.
Yeah.
The people who design and build the planes, the people who operate them, the regulators,
Right.
and of course the passengers. We all have a part to play.
We do. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll keep monitoring the situation and let you know if there are any updates.
We will.
In the meantime, stay informed, ask questions, and keep learning about aviation safety.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to making decisions about flying.
It is.
Safe travels, everyone.